Welcome back to Studio Time. My name is Andrew Masters. I get questions about this all the time. Essentially, this is a side table right next to my drum kit that is connected and allows me to control this computer in my control room from the drum kit. That way, if I'm playing the drums myself, I can easily control the DAW that I'm working in. I can punch myself in, I can do comps. I can essentially engineer the session from the drum kit. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can go about doing this depending on the situation you are in. I will show you and explain both of them here in this video. If this is something that you've been trying to figure out, do me a favor and hit that like button just below this video and let's get into it. Okay, so here are our two setups. These are both setups that I've used when I've been in either scenario. The first scenario is you're in, let's say, a home studio room and everything that you're doing is in the same room. Now, in that scenario, there's a couple different ways that you can go about it. I'm gonna just share the setup that I was using, and then I'll mention a couple alternatives that you could consider. So the first things first, you gotta have something to put your keyboard, your mouse, and your computer screen on. I used this standing table that's just a generic standing table on wheels. I'll link a couple that I've found in the description if you want to use those. I actually have two standing tables on wheels. The table doesn't matter that much. You need something fairly sturdy enough, and then I think the more surface area you can get to have, if you have a headphone box and your drum key and a couple things that you are gonna need while you're recording, that's really nice. On the other hand, if you're in a very, very small confined space, you might wanna look for a table that's a little bit smaller. Next is going to be the display. Now, the way that I went about it is I just bought a very cheap computer monitor. You could literally use the stand that the monitor comes on. I believe I got the VESA mount, which is something I used to use on my studio desk to hold the monitor so I can adjust the position of it relative to where I'm sitting, which can be really helpful when you're drumming and your screen's right next to your drum kit. Getting the positioning just right so that it's easy to actually reach there, and also to have a visual cue when you're recording is very, very helpful. Now, in this version of the setup where the drum kit is in the same room as the computer, I'm just essentially having a remote control. I used a long HDMI cable. Now, the cable that I'm using, I actually found a 50-foot optical cable, which means it's much thinner. It's also delicate, but it's a 50-foot optical HDMI cable to connect from my laptop to that secondary monitor via HDMI. And I want to say that cable was only 50 bucks. So for a 50-foot run, maybe you don't need 50 feet. I got 50 feet because it was a 20 by 20 room and I wanted to have a little extra slack. And in situations like that, you want to have a little bit more so that your setup can be flexible rather than not having enough. So the HDMI is coming off the HDMI out from my laptop, going around the room to the monitor on the screen. Now, the way that I'm actually controlling the computer is via a keyboard and mouse. These are both Bluetooth controlled, so they just connect to the computer via Bluetooth. It's in the same room, so it actually could just reach just fine. I didn't need anything in the middle. Also, if you're curious, this is the Logitech MX keys and MX Master 3 mouse. These are the best. So between the monitor on the HDMI cable and the Bluetooth keyboard and mouse, that's how you control the computer, and you can see it and everything that you need is there. Now, the next little detail is gonna be headphones, and I've gone back and forth between a couple different headphone systems depending on the sessions that I'm doing. And currently I'm using these P16s, the Behringers, which are 16-channel mixers, and I keep one of the mixers at the drum kit, and that just connects to the P16 distro hub via Ethernet, so a long Ethernet cable. So that's the entire setup for if you're working within the same room. Again, you got a long HDMI cable, a secondary computer monitor, and an extra Bluetooth and mouse. And if you don't want to spend the extra Bluetooth and mouse cost, just use the same one that you already have. If you already have them, just pick them up and carry it. That's what I did for a long time. And eventually, I just got really tired of the, I'd carry one over and then I would go back to my computer and I'd forget, and I just have to do this back and forth too many times. It just got very irritating. So getting a second set costs more money, but you know, it is nice to not have to think about these silly things when we're in focused recording and performing mode. Now, Now, the second situation is when you essentially have separate rooms for where you're performing and where you're recording. That's where I am now. My control room is right here. This is the room. It's dedicated to this, to listening, to having a good mix setup, to being able to hear what's happening, and of course control my computer. And then the drum kit is in a separate room. So when I go to record drums and it's just me, which often that's the case, I do a lot of remote drum recording sessions where people book me to play and record using all this nice stuff and send them files for their tracks. Most of the time when I'm doing that, it's just me. So I have to get the sounds and I have to switch the drums and do all of that. And when you have all of these different things that you're trying to do, you want it to be as frictionless as possible. So that's why I have this secondary rig in the room with me, and it makes the process much simpler. Now, the difference between the last setup where everything's in one room and this setup where everything's in different rooms is the distance between the rooms. The Bluetooth is no longer dependable for the keyboard and mouse at this distance. So I needed to find another solution to be able to connect the mouse and keyboard to the computer from a separate room. And since I already had the same computer monitor that I was using, the distance now is probably double from this room to that computer monitor. So I would need at least a 100-foot HDMI optical cable. And I just didn't want to do that. And that's where this box comes into play. This is an AV access box. This is going to give you 4K HDMI and USB connectivity available over IP. This thing's currently $157. And when you buy this, you get two of these boxes. One box that connects to your computer that you're trying to control, and the other box that goes to the secondary rig. Very, very simple to use this. The box that connects to your computer has a power supply. It has your HDMI input coming from your computer, and then you have a USB data connection to your computer as well. On the second box that's at your little rig by the drum kit, the box actually has the same thing. It has power, it has an HDMI out, which is going to connect to your monitor, and then on the front of it you have 3 USB inputs. So if you want to connect your mouse and keyboard to the computer from the remote rig, you have 3 USB 2.0 ports. And then lastly, what you want to do is connect both of these boxes together so that they can send and receive the information to each other, and they do that over IP or Ethernet. So you have an Ethernet connection on both of the boxes, and then you just run that Ethernet connection between the rooms. So in the drum room, I'm coming out of the box HDMI to the monitor, and then for the mouse and keyboard, I'm still using the same Bluetooth mouse and keyboard in there, but I'm using the dongle, and I just connect the dongle to the USB inputs, and then that leaves me one extra USB input that I can use. This system works really well. The only issue I get is I leave my computer on basically all the time, and sometimes when I come in the following day, if I go into the drum room to play or record, the display is like finicky or flashing or inconsistent. And what I do is I'll just unplug the Ethernet and just plug it right back in. I don't know why it does that. When I restart the computer, it seems to be fine. So if you don't leave your computer on all the time, then maybe you won't have that issue. But if you're like me and you do, then you can just unplug and replug in the Ethernet and it works fine. I'll try to find links for all this stuff and put them down in the description if you want to check them out. And then a special mention for all of the alternative ways to do this, which is either wirelessly via a tablet like an iPad. There are a lot of apps that are available now, sometimes for the actual DAW that you're using, where you literally can just use your iPad as a remote for that DAW. And this last one isn't the most practical, but if you have an extra laptop, you can actually connect your laptop as essentially a remote control for your studio computer and control your studio computer remotely from the laptop. I did this a few years ago. Wasn't great. Obviously, the laptop thing is just a much smaller resolution, and there was some latency. It wasn't super accurate. I'm not sure if it's any better. It might be, so you can try that out if you have an extra device. But in my experience, directly connecting to the computer is the best way to go about it. I hope this is helpful for you. This is a part of my workflow that's been very integral to all of my remote drum sessions, just the sessions. Sometimes I'm producing and playing drums, and it's easy to control the rig while everyone's at their instrument. I've seen it in several other studios be very useful there as well. If you're looking to set up your studio and you have any questions about workflow stuff like this, One of the things that I do in my business is I have consultations that you can actually go to my website and schedule a call with me to talk about anything like this. It's a really fun part of what I get to do is talk directly with you, see your studios, talk about your plans and how you can improve certain things. A lot of times people call me, they're just about to pull the plug on buying a bunch of equipment for their studio, and they just want to kind of go through it and have it make sense. And honestly, it's really fun getting to see how you guys are using your studios. So if you want to check that out, you can go to my website at andrewmastersmusic.com. And of course, I would not be able to bring you these videos if it wasn't for the support from you guys watching these videos, but also from the sponsors. And I want to thank Sweetwater for sponsoring this video today. Now, there's nothing really specific to this video that you can get from Sweetwater. You can't actually get a lot of the accessories like the keyboard and mouse, and they now have a whole line of products for like creators, like cameras and lights and keyboards and live streaming and stuff like that. You can now get it from Sweetwater, and I put links to pretty much all the gear that I have and stuff that I use in the description. The Sweetwater links are affiliate links, so if you're going to go get something from Sweetwater, you click that link first. It's a great way to support the channel at no extra cost to you. And the last thing I'll say is July is software sales, where they're offering some amazing deals on plugins, VSTs, DAWs, and more. So go check out the software at sweetwater.com. Big thanks to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the subscribe button, the like button, leave a comment down below, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.